So hello and welcome to the Lewis Nichols Show. And I think this is the most excited I have been for an interview because you're just hilarious. And especially my favourite show is Two Doors Down. So we'll talk a lot more about that. But it's the brilliant Elaine C Smith. How are you?
I'm very well, and thank you so much for asking me on the show.
No, thank you for coming on. I mean, there's so much to talk to you about, but I wanted to kind of go back to the really beginning for you, which is where your love and your passion for acting and theatre, where did that come from for you?
Well, I suppose when I think of it now, it was television, because I was brought up in a mining village in Lanarkshire near Motherwell, and there were no theatres. There were cinemas, but there were no theatres. So I don't think I actually went or got into a theatre until I was in the Girl Guides, and I was like 12 or something, and taken to see some variety show in Glasgow. But at the King's Theatre, ironically, was the first theatre I went to. And I do remember in the variety show, there were sketches, and there were great actors. There was a very famous Scottish actor called Roddy McMillan, and who was known all over the UK, and Johnny Grieve and people like that, who were in a TV show called The Vital Spark, which is well before your time, even before mine. And they were just fantastic actors, and they did these little sketches between, you know, the accordion player or whatever it was coming on, the dancers. And I just loved the sketches. And one was a drunk man coming home from his work and trying to get in the door with a key. And it was just so beautifully done. But more than anything, I mean, I hadn't had the experience of that. My father was a drinker, thankfully. But it was the reaction of the audience, that the audience were in stitches, you know, 2,000 people. We were way up in the gods. And that stirred something in me about performing. But we'd always been, you know, it sounds really, really arch now to say, we always made our own entertainment in those days. But you bloody had to, sadly, because you know, you had the TV, but we had lots of family gatherings and parties. So you did, as they call it in Scotland, you did your turn. And your turn could be, you know, telling a joke, but mainly it was singers. And I was a singer before it was anything else. And watching that again was watching, my cousin Kate was a fabulous singer, and she could, in what I term, stop the room. She could, when she sang, people listened. And they didn't even join in that much because she was really good. And it was that, as a little girl, going, I want to do that. I want to stop the room. I want to. And many years later, to be able to do that. And actually, I wrote a show about Susan Boyle called I Dreamed a Dream, and which toured all over the UK. But I incorporated that living room into the show, because I knew that Susan would have had a similar experience and all that. But it wasn't actually her living room, it was my living room that I put in. And that desire for performance and stopping the room and attention, I suppose it was just a show off. And then at school, there was a great thing about Robert Burns, learning stuff, or being in high school plays. You know, I was Gilbert and Sullivan operettas and all that stuff. But that desire, I suppose, to entertain, because what entertainment seemed to do was bring everybody together, and hearing all people laugh at the same time or sing at the same time. And I've been trying to do that for 40 years, not always successfully, but tried to do it.
I think
so
very.
That's what
I think very successfully, that's for sure. But I mean, for you then, when would you say your big break came about in regards to television work? When was that big break for you?
Oh, well, I went to drama school. I am classically trained. So I went to Royal Scottish Academy, of Music and Drama, now the Conservatoire. And but I didn't want it, so I was a singer and I sung in clubs and all of that sort of stuff. And so I learned a bit of my craft there, because if you can hold a club audience, you can do anything. And then I left there, but I wanted to be a teacher. So I taught in a high school in Edinburgh for 3 years. I did my postgrad and then taught. And again, if you can keep 2C on a Thursday afternoon at 3 o'clock occupied, you're a good performer, you know, because keep my class of crazy kids at times is you have to be on your mettle. So all of those, I now look back and think they were really good bits of training. And then I'd always been involved in student politics and things like that. And there was a theatre company around called 784 Theatre Company. So a left-wing theatre, taking on issues of the day, but they were musical. They had a band. They had a fab band and a wonderful singer called Terry Neeson and Dave Anderson in it and all that. And when I was at university, I wrote my thesis about them because it was about new theatre and all of that. And I'd gone to see them in the Citizens Theatre in Glasgow. And that was I want to do that. Because I could play keyboards, I could sing, and I could act, and it was about politics as well and about social issues. And also, they spoke in a Scottish accent, because I suppose you have to understand that you know, people not from Scotland. But I was brought up with versions of Scotland that weren't exactly the Scotland I was living in. You know, the Kilts and Haggis Brigade. Nothing wrong with Kilts and Haggis. But that was sort of pumped out, and of course that was never the real picture of that. Even it was from Queen Victoria and a Victorian view of Scottish culture. Oh, isn't it lovely that we all put on our kilts and we'll be Scottish? When the people I knew in Motherwell worked in the steelworks and, you know, sung Frank Sinatra songs, they weren't doing that sort of version of ourselves. And we had newsreaders that were frightfully sort of Scottish, but polite Scottish, you know, and a very controlled view of what Scotland would be, particularly for women. So when I saw this, it was like, oh no, that's who we are. This is speaking to us, and using, particularly variety was huge in Scotland. So variety traditions as well, and great comics, you know, Billy Connolly, Lex McLean, people like that, Stanley Baxter, all came out of variety. But again, all men. So I was with this company, 784, and a sister company called Wildcat, who did more music. And the then head of what had just been established was the comedy unit at BBC Scotland by a man called Colin Gilbert, spotted me and thought, oh, and I was doing American accents and things like that in it. And he spotted me and asked me to come and audition for a radio show, which was a sort of satirical mock the week type of a radio show, recorded live in front of an audience. And I got the job, as I was the only woman with, but in that cast was Gregor Fisher, Tony Roper, Andy Gray, Jonathan Watson, who, you know, I've got on, and Jonathan Watson, who's in Tudors, and we were at drama school together. He was the year below me at drama school, although he is older. Anyway, he'll hate me for saying that. So that was the sort of bedrock of doing stuff. And then we went to the Edinburgh Fringe and did it there. And then Colin had the idea that this core of people, along with Helen Ledger and John Sparks, as it was then, would be good at doing a pilot for a telly. And out of Naked Radio was born Naked Video. In the middle of Naked Video, a guy called Ian Patterson, who was one of the writers, and it's remarkable when I look back, because Naked Video, we had Paul Whitehouse, we had Nigel Planer, we had Harry Enfield, all writing sketches for us then, you know, for 10 quid a go or whatever. And that's how I ended up meeting them and stuff, because they were writers, or part of the team of writers that would occasionally come up and see recordings. But Ian Patterson wrote a sketch about a guy with a bandage. And it turned out his name was Rab C Nesbitt, and I was his wife. But the first sketch just said, wife of guy with bandage was the title of it. And I did a monologue, and his writing and what we were doing. And of course, again, it was that thing in Scotland, that pervading cringe, that I call it, that we have, that we were all worried that English audiences wouldn't like us because we were too Scottish. So in all the sketches we were doing, we're trying to do Lancashire and Yorkshire and all that. But then when the audience research went out, we discovered that what people liked the best was the Scottish stuff.
Yeah.
And Rab C came on, and it just sort of exploded. And we got letters from like Lenny Henry and Michael Graydon, people saying this is fantastic. And so they decided to make a pilot of that. And then, the next sort of 20 years of my life were sort of taken up off and on. But people think it's like America, that when you do television in America, basically you're doing Friends constantly. But we're doing 6 episodes. So it would take 8 weeks. So you had to fill up the rest of your year. They weren't paying you enough. So out of that, I went off and did Shakespeare, and I went off just for my own sanity, I suppose, to prove that I could do lots of other things too, and do came down and did Calendar Girls and the original cast of that and stuff. So they were great adventures as well, with this core running through. But that's sort of, I always think that in show business, one break into something. If I had said no to that badly paid radio show, then, all these other things may never have happened,
I mean, the thing is...
So that's a watchword to actors.
I mean, we've got to talk about Rab C Nesbitt. Of course, you were saying there, people didn't know how the English audience would react, but it's become one of the most celebrated comedy shows of all time. So when you did the first series of Rab C Nesbitt, did you ever anticipate it would become the kind of huge hit it's become?
Never. Well, I mean, in actual fact, when Gregor did him as a monologue on Naked Video, he shot it 3 times because he didn't think it was funny. And we were all going, he's hilarious. And he was going, no, you make me laugh. And we were going, it's brilliant, it's brilliant. And they actually tried, I think, Andy Gray out, because Gregor kept going, I don't think I can make him work. And they tried Andy with the bandage on, but Andy was from Perth, so he didn't have the Glasgow accent that it was wonderful, but that Gregor had. So finally he did it, and when it went out, it was the reaction on the seas of this guy. And then, of course, you get in Scotland, oh, that's a terrible image to give of Scotland, of a drunk man, blah, blah, blah. But actually, for me, the writing was always much, much more than that. It's like saying The Simpsons is only about a guy that works in a power plant who's not very bright. Yeah. Actually, what The Simpsons is able to say about the world, and if you look at those episodes, and we still had a bit of the chip in the shoulder, and were a bit surprised at how it had gone. And it wasn't until we did a UK tour and we sold out the Hammersmith Apollo. And the Rolling Stones hadn't sold it out apparently the week before, but we sold it out for so many nights. And we realised that it wasn't just Scots living in England that were coming to see us. And we toured Newcastle. I remember opening Newcastle, and the front row had 4 guys with vests and bandages. It's sort of a cult thing. And then people started coming back to see it. But again, because it was made in Scotland, a lot of the time it didn't get the push from, we were getting huge audiences, but it didn't get the same push that Alas Smith and Jones was getting, or the Rory Bremner show, or whatever was getting. Because, and I understand, because they were making it in-house in BBC, it was really easy for them to interview people and get a head of steam around it. I don't think I was in broadcasting house for 15 years in
Wow.
London. I'd never been asked to anything, you know, and but you saw other and pals who were not in as big shows were getting on, and it was because it wasn't deliberate. It's just that you weren't really thought about, or they do that, and it gets big audiences. And also, you have to say that a lot of the people who were running things at that time, it wouldn't have been their favourite show. It might have been the punter's favourite show, but
Yeah.
it wasn't those living within the M25 or in Holland Park. They weren't and going, what is that man saying? What is he talking about? So, so you sort of understand that there's a bit of that in there, but now it's I think it's the only sitcom from Scotland that ever made the top like 40 sitcoms in the UK and stuff. But I suppose that I've always been a wee bit, you know, when they talk about the Comedy Awards, the British Comedy Awards, I'm like, no, they're the London Comedy Awards. You know, you don't, it's interesting. I think Rab C got nominated once in all the time we were on. But but I feel the same. Where are the Welsh comedy programs? Where are the Irish? Where are the Geordie? Where are the Manchester? So it's about. I think it's not getting political here, but I think some of the divide that has happened in the UK over the last, 30 years has been that London-centric, notion of this is how everything is, and that the Northeast feels forgotten, or the Northwest feels forgotten, or whatever. So, and television at its best can really bring people together, and you would hope that we're moving a bit more towards that, I think. Hopefully.
I mean, the character Mary though.
Down's an example.
I got so much about Two Doors Down. Honestly, I just think it's incredible. But with Mary Doll, she was just, the one-liners that she come out with, she was just brilliant. And I know you just looked like you had so much fun playing the character. So when they initially ended the series in the late 90s before the revival, how did you feel about that? Because for so many years, this was a big part of your life, and then suddenly, it's finished.
Relieved.
Really?
I felt relieved, because I've said this before publicly, so I'm not offending anybody. I loved it, and I loved the series, and I loved the team and all of that. But it became like a gold line straitjacket for me. It offered, you made money, you could buy your house, you could do lots of things like that, and I thank the heavens and Colin Gilbert for that, and Ian Patterson. But it became, I realized I couldn't be seen for anything else. And as I said, it didn't pay you enough to last a whole year or whatever. And creatively, I realized I was being so identified with it. Now I'm old now. So now I just thank the heavens that I was so fortunate to have that compared to other actors. And, it sounds like a moaning actor to go, oh, it was because I wanted to do my art. But I did. I wanted to go off and do other things. And I wanted to show people I was capable of more. And so I was sort of pigeonholed. I can't tell you the amount of times I turned up at places to do after dinner events or corporate events or whatever. And I would turn in, and I was 20 years younger than they thought I was, with dark hair, and even going for interviews in London. I remember going up for the Bill years ago, and I walked in, it was when we were in London, and my hair was black, and I had a bob, and I had a leather jacket and jeans on, and everything. I walked in, you could see them go, because they were wanting to cast Mary Nesbitt in this part.
Yeah.
When I saw the part, I thought, oh. And so I sort of freaked them out a wee bit by, that. And also that thing of people didn't think I was acting, I've got a real thing about that in Scotland. If you act within your own accent, then people don't think you're acting. Nobody says to Robert De Niro, hey, Bobby, not the American accent again, we're a bit tired of that. But to Scots, they go, oh, well, she's Scottish, she's not really acting. And then eventually, so when it ended, I was sad on one level, but I felt it had done its time. I mean, we had done, I think, about seven, 8 series by then. And I think we were all ready, and rather go when it's still popular than people going, I can't really be bothered with that anymore. So and it freed me up to do, you know, lots of other things, which I found creatively really stimulating. I had set up my own production company by then, and we were doing stuff for Scottish television here, for BBC. I had a chat show, you know, various things like that. So, but when we were going back, I never felt we go back for a series. But I did think Christmas specials were a great idea. I thought going back to do that, to let you dip in and out and get a fix, if you like, of the characters and stuff. So going back and putting the wig on was great, but it was a new wig because the world had moved on. Scotland had moved on, and I sat with Ian, the writer, and the producers, and saying, well, look, if Mary and Ella now have a cleaning company, they're cleaners, and they've got their own company called House Mice, then sure, the first thing any self-respecting working class businesswoman does is get a set of highlights and a fake tan. So that's what I did. I got a new wig with loads of highlights and a fake tan all the time. So that just was my own personal thing of how she would have moved on, and just she was more sure of herself and more much more able to take on Rab, and he was, so the dynamic in the relationship changed as well.
And it was a great thing because when you have a show as successful as Rab C Nesbitt, when they announce they're bringing it back after such a long time, you kind of, as a fan, sit back and think, oh, is this going to be as good? Am I going to be disappointed? And nobody was, because it just worked. The comedy hadn't aged. And I think it's down to you as a cast having that connection. It just seemed to, everything about it worked. It was brilliant. And the ratings were incredible, which must have been great for you guys, because I guess that was an anxiety for you. You know, is this going to work? Is it going to be well received?
Very much so. That it was like, and we did, everybody deliberated over it for a long time. You know, would it work? Would it be the best thing? And we did the same. There was big talk before COVID of a stage show, of us getting together and doing a live show in the Hydro here. And it was the same thing. Would the audience be ready? Would they want, you know, as a sort of farewell 25 years on or whatever. But the same thing with the series was, are the audience tired of it? And there was always a section of the audience, even in Scotland, that looked down its nose at it a wee bit. You know, they didn't, it was a bit, yes, we're over it now, sort of thing. And certain sections of the supposed highbrow press a bit. So when we did bring it back, it was really gratifying to see the numbers that it got. And also, you know, we got the wonderful Gary Lewis, the actor. He came in and did the Christmas special, and we got Richard E. Grant to come and play a Tory cabinet minister. And you know, I emailed him. I said to Colin, the producer, we should have somebody like Richard to do that. And we got Susan Boyle to come in at one bit just for a wee shot and stuff, because I'd been doing the show. So those sort of wee things, you realise that. And I remember Richard E. Grant saying how nervous he was coming onto the set, and because this was this iconic programme, you know, that he had watched, and we were like, what? So that was. It was great. It was really, really good to do, and good to be back. And Gregor and I are you know, we're not the type of actors, we've known each other for 30 years, but we're not on the phone to each other every day or anything like that. He lives in France and stuff. But we work brilliantly together. We are, and I put it down to particularly him initially. The best thing advice I can give to any young actor is watch, and to watch the best. In pantomime, standing in the wings, watch what those people who've been doing it a long time. I know we all go in going, where'd you get a load of this? I'm fantastic. But actually watch them and watch how they time, because you can't teach time. One of the things when I'm sitting in an audience that drives me crazy are young actors with good lines running at pace and not waiting. No, because I'm sitting there going, there's 3 laughs there and you've got 1 and you've rushed through it, you know. And watching Gregor's skill, technical ability, and also the weight of the show he had to carry. You know, I got days off because I wasn't in all the time. That was a massive thing for him. And you only realise that later in life when you've maybe got a lead role in something yourself, just exactly what a responsibility that is. So he was always on point and always knew, you know, his lines were always done, and that gets harder as you get older as well. I have to tell you, remembering lines, but he was just a consummate pro and really, really fine actor. So that, and Babs Rafferty and I are great pals, who plays Ella. So we, you know, all of that. You slot in, but if you're decent actors with good lines, it works. The hard job comes when you're with actors that can't really do it and not very good lines. Then you're in trouble.
I mean, you've probably been asked this a lot. Do you think the show could potentially make a comeback in the future?
I think, well, you have to understand, we're all older now. I mean, it might be Rab C in an old folks home. You can maybe do something like that. Or, you know, Tony Roper, who plays Jamesy, I mean, Tony's nearly 80 now. So, you know, there are considerations like that in it about whether it would work. I think Ian is absolutely capable of doing something like that and putting something like that together. But I think they did go to BBC with the idea of a COVID, you know, during lockdown sort of special, and BBC said no. So it's the powers that be, I suppose, that decided.
Well, I mean, one thing I cannot wait to talk to you about, because I really mean this when I say it's my favourite show, is Two Doors Down. I only discovered it a few months ago, and I've watched every episode about 10 times because it's addictive. So we got to talk. I mean, you obviously play. Is what? Sorry.
Yeah, you know it better than I do then.
I mean, you play the character.
And I think lockdown did that. Lockdown, I noticed a massive rise of people searching for stuff to do. And then when they hit on it, it was, I suppose it's a bit like Schitt's Creek, which is another favourite of mine, you know, that once you hit on it and you go with it, it's absolutely addictive, and you can't. And I have people walking past me, you know, a government walk every day, walking past and saying hello to me, who I didn't know, and they were going, oh, that's seen us through lockdown, we've watched every episode. Most of them like you, who had never caught it before, which is great.
I mean, you play the character of Christine, and the thing was, obviously, they did a pilot episode that you weren't in. And then, you know, when it was commissioned for a series, they went one better and cast you in the show, which just took it, in my opinion, to a different level. And you play this character of Christine. She's lovable. You might not want her as your neighbour, and she's going to eat you out of house and home. But she's just hilarious. I mean, when you how did you feel when you got the part in the show, and when you read the script for the first time and got to know the character?
Sorry, that you froze a bit there.
How did you feel when you saw the script for the first time and got to know about the character?
Well, it's interesting because I saw the pilot, and I was in Panto at His Majesty's in Aberdeen at the time, and I remember my husband saying, oh, I watched, I think, because Alex Norton is a huge pal of mine. He directed Shirley Valentine, he directed about 5 Pantos I was in, and I just adore him anyway. And Johnny, of course, I knew. And Bob said, I watched that thing on at New Year with Johnny and Alec in it. He said it was really good, really different and funny. So the first reaction as an actor is to be incredibly jealous because you're not in it. which is where I went to. I was like, oh, really, really? Oh, very good. Then what happened? And I found out later on from the writers that they had wanted me for the pilot actually to play, I think, was it before Arabella, who's wonderful as Beth, but they were looking for a Scottish actress. And they had said, and I think Arabella and I have talked about this, that there was talk of me playing Beth. And wow. But I wasn't available. I didn't know anything about it. And then Arabella, who's fantastic as Beth, and I'm really glad now. But and then I watched it, and again I was jealous because I thought it was really good. I thought it was really fresh and different coming out of Scotland. I thought the no laughter track from an audience. I thought it was clever. I thought it wasn't too specific to an area or whatever, and that people in Belfast or Doncaster could relate completely because everybody's got neighbours, you know.
Yeah.
And so about a year later, I was actually in BBC. They wanted to see me for the soap opera, but on the same day I got asked to go in. And I just said to my agents in London, I said, look, I saw in the paper that they're doing a series. If anything come up in that, I'd be really up for doing, thinking woman at bus stop, you know, a little part in it to go, because I thought they've got a core cast if they would be interested. And I can't remember what happened, but she knew people involved and had said this. So I went in, and I thought I was going in just for a general interview with Steve Canny, head of comedy, and Gregor Sharp, one of the writers. I didn't really sort of compute, so I chatted away as ever and that. And then they came back saying, we'd like you to play Sharon Rooney's mum. And I was doing my stand-up at the Edinburgh Festival at the time. And a whole team of them came to see me in that. And the producer going, oh, we're so thrilled because I had said yes. And it literally, the filming fitted exactly between the end of my stand-up tour and the beginning of Panto. I mean, it was weird. And I read it and thought, oh, she's I just knew how to play her. Because she was so well written. And I loved Sharon Rooney anyway, and her and I just got on really well, and going in and it was tough because I was the newbie, if you like, going in, but also it had been over a year since the original sort of cast had been together, and there was different casting in that too. So it was strange, and also a really different way of filming. And what you get as a viewer, that ability of seeing every raise of an eyebrow, every, oh yes, all that is actually a nightmare to shoot because it takes forever. And the writers, who are brilliant, they knew exactly what they wanted. So there was a lot of real specific notes and stuff like that coming in initially, and that was difficult, you know, at times, and at times you just felt all the comedy had gone out of it, and now I think, you know, by the time we got to the next series, things had evolved and there was trust. You knew, the writers knew that I was going to deliver a line a certain way. They knew that Doon was going to be able to do that, or blah blah blah. And you could, we all started, and also what I loved about the writers was, there's a favourite bit of mine where we're playing Mr. and Mrs.
Yeah.
And there was a line with Beth and Eric, and Beth's got a pad and writing down the points, and the question to Eric was, what is your favourite meal, or something like that. Now the line I can't remember how it was.
Isn't a pad big enough?
Yeah. I mean, the line was supposed to be, I don't think that's a big enough pad. But Simon, the writer, was there. One of the writers was there. I got him in and I said, is there not a Jaws reference here? And he went, what do you mean? I said, you know, I think you need a bigger boat. I said, so I think you better get a bigger pad. And he went, oh yeah, do that.
Yeah.
So there's room for that if they think you've taken what there is and it's funnier. There's lots of times they go, no, that's shit, you're not doing that, or they don't like it or whatever. So there's times I look at it and think, they should have used that other one or whatever, but there's a real collaborative thing. And I think as you go along, I remember Ian Patterson saying that about Mary Nesbitt, that he had actually written her much harder than I played her. He'd actually written her as much tougher, and he said, you brought a warmth to her, and a likability to her. And he said, so eventually I write for that. I know, and what was great was that Ella then became a great counterfoil for that. And it's the same with this. But also, I'd never been on a set where the women were allowed to be so funny. And they were half women, half men set, you know, and a different atmosphere. There was a day where we had a female production manager or first assistant. We had a female DOP, Sarah. We had Doon, myself, Sharon and Arabella all in one scene, and all of us being funny. And I texted a pal in London and said, I think I'm in a parallel universe. I've never been on a set like this in 40 years, you know. So that was really quite liberating as well, that the women are allowed to be funny, but that is down to the writing. And Simon and Greg, they really write brilliantly.
I mean, you mentioned the line there about the pad, but another one was when somebody asked Eric what he wanted to be when he was younger, and he turned around and said an astronaut. And then it goes over to Christine and says, Christ, the rocket would never leave the ground. And it's just, I mean,
off the ground.
And, you know, you've got this ability.
Funny line.
I was going to say, you've got this ability.
There are times.
Oh no, I was going to say, before you were mentioning there about the little looks and stuff, and you've got this ability to, every time you watch the episode, you notice something different, because Christine's always doing something. So it could be sticking a middle finger up, it could be a little look, a raised eyebrow, and it just adds to every single scene, because not only are you laughing at what Kathy and Colin might be doing, but you're laughing at, and you're almost waiting for Christine. You know what's coming, you know there's going to be that little line, you just connect with the audience, and the love that you have on social media is phenomenal. I'm not sure if you see it, but people just love the way you do it.
I don't do social media, so Simon tells me about it and goes, you know, you're trending on Twitter or whatever, but it's not that I'm averse to it. I just I sort of know, you know, by the reaction of people, and it's great for the show, and it's great because what they're applauding is not me, it's my work, which is great. And the way they're able, the time consuming thing I was talking about, the way they're able to get all those looks is they do the whole scene every time. But they're on different people, so they get every single reaction, so you're acting all the way through. And there's one of my other favorites is when I'm sitting with the guys, and you see that Christine basically thinks she's a man, and I put that down to the fact that she doesn't have a husband to temper her, to tell her to wind her neck in and be quiet, and that the other men are frightened of her. And that scene when she's sitting, and I did a thing, and Simon just was laughing when they saw it on screen, because I did that male stance of sitting with my legs open with my trousers, you know, and like a guy. And then Eric going through saying, do you want a drink? And I go, have you got ulcers, Eric?
Yeah.
Just such a guy. Got a pose, so those little things, but you wouldn't notice that. I don't think you're right. I don't think you notice those things the first time through, and I think that's one of the enjoyable things of going back. And we all do it, you know. Arabella, I have to say, her as an actor, it must initially have been so frustrating, because you don't have big speeches, you don't have big lines, but every single reaction she does is perfection. And without her and Eric, we're not funny. We're just monsters. So everybody at home will identify with Eric and Beth, thinking, yes, we're the nice people. But I think the amount of people that come up to me and say, oh my God, she's like my auntie. Oh my God, Kathy's like my sister-in-law who's always talking. And so I think they've got a great mix in all of that. And that is down to the precision of the writers and the precision of the way it's shot, by allowing the audience to find much, much more. And you can see it a bit in things like Modern Family, Schitt's Creek, those series, those American series that are not afraid to do all of that, that you actually in Modern Family, you're waiting for Cam's reaction to something as opposed to what the gag is. And I think that's wonderful.
I don't know why I find it even more funny, but when Christine swears, it makes me laugh even more because she just puts it in at the right time. And I don't know why, it just makes me cry with laughter when she swears before one of her lines. It works.
Well, I've got a theory about this. You'll not be surprised to know. I think swearing is an art. And I cannot bear when I watch, and you can tell actors who don't really swear, or they've not been brought up around it or whatever, that they don't know how to do it properly, and the swearing jumps out at you. And you hear that more than anything else. And there's also the juxtaposition of an older woman swearing, because you don't expect it. You don't expect that. You expect them to be more mannerly and that. And so you've got that, but you've also got, I know how to swear, and I know how to swear properly. And it's not actually because I swear a lot. I do swear, but I don't swear like Christine. But there's a way, particularly Glaswegian, Billy Connolly does it as well, that there's a way of throwing it away. And there's are you fucking kidding? That's just that. Just that, is that what he's fucking saying? Is just so you hear it. Now, I could do that, and you'll not be able to put this out on radio, but I could do it in another way if I was doing it. Are you fucking kidding? Then that jumps out.
Yeah.
But actually, her going, are you fucking kidding? Is much, much funnier. But also, they write the swearing well. But there are times when I go, you don't need that there. You've got too many fucks in that sentence, because it's good to go, but I'm no Donald fucking Duck, right? That's funny.
Yeah.
But I'm not, if you say, I'm no fucking Donald Duck, it's, there's ways where it can be and where you can put the swearing in, and to do it properly and believably and funnily, it's an art. And I think I see that as essential to an actor's toolbox as being able to do lines of Shakespeare, and particularly that's years and years ago, 30 years ago, when I was a young actress, maybe 40 years ago, a woman came up to me. We were doing Naked Video at the time, and a woman came up to me in Glasgow, we working class women in a shop, and she said, "Oh, Hen, you're that lassie off the telly." And I went, "That's right." I'm very chuffed at being recognised. And she says, "Hen, nobody does a Glasgow woman like you." And that was like an Oscar, because I know these women as well. Christine's a combination of my aunties. My mother never swore or whatever, but those women pass remarkable. And it's very interesting. I was doing a play with the National Theatre here, and half the cast were Afro-Caribbean from London and Nigeria. Brilliant. And it was really amazing how many of them related to Christine, going, she's like my auntie from Jamaica. She's who sits on the couch going, wait a minute, I'll tell you. That's remarkable. So I think it goes through sort of a cultural barrier, and if you're from Newcastle or if you're from, you know, Torquay, then you know women like her.
And I mean, the great thing about the show is you look at it and it's such a simple idea. And there's always a reason why the neighbours are there. There's always a reason why Kathy and Colin have popped in. There's always a reason why Christine is there. And it just works. And the fact from an audience member, we can all relate to you. We all know a Kathy, the person that wants to be a little bit younger than they are, always drunk. It just works. Everything about it is so small, yet it's brilliant. It's something that I've not seen on TV
Well,
before.
there's also, I think, an element of tragedy in it. And there's a great phrase that all comedy is just tragedy plus time, which is one of my favourite phrases, because it is. You watch stand-ups and it's invariably the disasters in their life that they share with us that end up being funny. And if you had to analyse Kathy and Colin's life, then Kathy drinks because she's unhappy and she can't have children, and she's his second wife, and they have all the trappings in their house. They have the Lexus in the driveway and all of that, but it's all on hire purchase. It's all for show. It's not, and everything is about things and all of that. Christine is on her own. God knows what happened to her husband. I want Peter Kay to come in and play her husband for an episode.
That would be brilliant.
That he comes back to clean the house. But you also know she's a woman that feels the world owes her a living. She will have every government grant that is going, every benefit, she will have every form, she'll know everything. And but her daughter has moved to Wales to get away from her with her only grandchild. And her life is looking out her window, looking at what her neighbours are up to. Beth and Eric, I don't think are as tragic. They're just living, trying to live a half decent life, but it's quite a small life. It's not a very adventurous life, wishing that they could go and do other things with neighbours next door that are doing it, and coping with their son and their hopes for him and his relationship. But you know, but what is wonderful in it is there's a great tolerance in it. There's no, I love the fact that there's no real, Christine makes comments about the gay couple or whatever. She loves them, but she will say things about gay marriage like, oh yeah, you can do that these days, but it's not the same. She will make totally inappropriate comments, but actually there's nothing derogatory about the fact that they're gay. There's no, whereas I think many years ago, it would have been, the whole thing would have been about the horror of that. It's not, it's total acceptance. And Kathy, of course, has to kiss the boyfriends all the time, played brilliantly by Kieran Harkey before and then Kieran, because she has to make every man desire her, and she can't understand. You know, so there's a great amount of depth to them all, I think, but you can't go into that. You just play it on top. But there's a lot of tragedy in there, and I think that's what people recognise. You know, I think somebody put on a remark. Somebody told me after the Christmas special that they got worried that that Kathy was being picked on a bit, that there was an enabling of her drinking. Now, on one level, maybe, but I think if you go there, then you're no longer funny. So that was very interesting that people would even see that.
I mean, what I find great about Christine is she's one of those people you wouldn't necessarily want in your house when you've got visitors. I mean, when Graham and Sandra, parents come over, and she goes to them, are there any other homosexuals in your family? And then Beth brings out the sandwiches and she makes a point of saying, oh, not your deli shite tonight. You know, she just always says those comments where you just wish, oh, for goodness sake. And that's what just makes it, because as a viewer, you're waiting, you're wanting that, aren't you?
Oh, I think you're absolutely right. And again, Maggie, they were so good, those actors. And Maggie was fantastic because she was such a corpser, you know, she laughed. So I'm quite bad when I know somebody wants to laugh. I will go with it. But all those lines were, and we would have to stop because we would all collapse, you know, with those one-liners from Christine that would come out and just deflate everything. And you know, oh my God, she's going to say something. She's just going to embarrass them. And that, I think it's almost that old-fashioned comedy of manners when you get to an episode like that. It is a classic, oh my God, here she is. And as soon as you see that shadow at the door, you go, oh, here we go. What's going on now?
He insisted on dragging me in here to talk to you.
Yeah, you listen, you know the lines better than I do. It's great.
Well, one thing, I'm not sure if you know about this, but we had Doon on this week and we had Jonathan yesterday. And with both of them, I quizzed them about their own character. So I gave them 10 questions about their character, and Doon got 10 out of 10. Jonathan got 2 out of 10. So,
Doon's such a swat.
So here, these are your 10 questions, and we'll see how you get on. So question number 1. What did Christine do to Eric that resulted in him getting a bloody nose? She did something to Eric and he had a bleeding nose because of it.
I can't remember. I've no idea.
Hits him with a baseball bat.
Did she hit him? Yeah, she hit him. I did say, did she hit him?
Yeah.
I do remember that. I hit him with something. Yeah, that's right.
They're playing swing ball. The ball goes in the garden. You have half a point. What is the name of what is the name of the buggy that Christine buys for Sophie?
Oh, it's oh God, I said those lines so many times. Is it a Billy buggy or a
So it's something boo.
Oh, I can't.
Something boo.
A bugaboo. Is it a bugaboo?
It's Barney Boo.
Barney Boo. I said that about 20 times. Oh God, I'm going to be worse than Jonathan.
What did Christine buy for Colin's dad, Willie, for his birthday? And he was very ungrateful for it as well.
Was it whiskey?
Yes.
It was whiskey from...
Whiskey?
Yes. It was whiskey from Pitlochry, because I'd gone on a tour to see the waterfalls of Scotland.
Yeah, that again was another brilliant line from Christine where, you know, he's really ungrateful for it. And then Colin says, Christine, what would you like? And she goes, my fucking money back.
That was great. Yeah, it was.
What? Now, this is really tough. If you get this, I'll be very impressed. What was the Facebook status Christine put when she won the PPI claim? So she won money on the PPI and she put something on Facebook. Can you remember what it was?
Oh, it was very funny. It was something, it was something along the lines of basically bragging. I can't remember. No, that's too hard.
So it was, so she says to Beth, you know, I don't want to give too much away. She goes onto Facebook, 6 grand PPI over the fucking moon. Which is just...
over the fucking moon, that's right.
Next one for you is when Christine's ceiling collapsed, she went over to spend the night at Beth and Eric's house. But what biscuits did she ask for?
Oh, a pink wafer.
That's right. Well done.
Pink wafer biscuits. I remember that.
And do you know what I love about that? There's a scene at the end of that episode where you call Beth over and you think that she's going to say something nice or compliment her, and she goes, come here. And then she goes, what's the chances of another one of those wee pink wafer biscuits?
And that, I love that because you can see in Beth's face, finally, she's going to get some gratitude. But no, not from Chris.
When Christine was invited to Beth and Eric's for Christmas dinner, it was disappointingly small. But what did Christine say the gravy would be served in?
A thimble?
That's right. Yes,
Yes, a
a
thimble.
thimble.
God, where did that come from? I can't believe I remembered that.
One of the great lines that was as well. Again, you don't expect it, and she just comes out with this thimble line. It's brilliant. When Christine was in hospital overnight, what was the name of the nurse that looked after her?
Oh, that wee nurse.
So much so, I think you were going to put her in your will.
I put her in my will. That scene was brilliant as well, where Beth thinks again, I'm going to be appreciative. And I go, see that wee nurse? Oh, was it
Begins with a
was it
H.
Alison or oh,
H.
oh wait a minute. Helen.
Heather.
Heather. That wee nurse Heather. I was remembering the actress's name is Jenny, and I was remembering her name. I could didn't get that. No, you can't give me that. I remember the context, but
the next one is, what did Christine do to Sophie in the hopes that she would reveal the baby's father's name?
What did I do? Oh, I locked her in the shed in the garden.
You did, yes.
That was the scene I was talking about with all the women. I loved that. Yeah.
That was just brilliant.
Oh, yeah, I locked her in the shed.
What did Christine buy for Michelle and Alan's housewarming party? The brilliant thing that she always does is state the price as well. She said, yep, 50p. It comes in a little sandwich bag.
I remember the eye patch on, which is one of my favourite episodes. That's the one with where I got a cut. One of my favourite lines where I got a cut from my newspaper. The doctor said if it had been my take a break, it could have been much worse.
The best thing about that was when Colin says, oh, did the doctor give you the patch? No, I thought it was fancy dress, so I've come as a pirate.
I've come as a fucking pirate.
Yeah. And then she's shouting bargain hunt into the remote control.
Oh, that was, I actually put that in the panto last year or the year before, the bargain hunt, which got a big laugh. What did I bring? 50p. It was a wee cactus, a wee plant.
Yes, you got it. Yeah, cactus.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yes.
You're doing really well. And the last one, what did this is brilliant. What did Kathy do to Christine while she was on the loo?
She was outside the window.
That's
Did
it.
she
Yeah.
not shout something through the window, the bathroom window, as she went past and banged the window? Yeah.
She actually lights firecrackers, puts them through the window, and it all bangs, and then. But we're going to give you half a point for that, which makes up for the other. So, looking at that now, we've got 1, 2, 3. God, so you beat 4, 5, 6, 6.5. So yeah, you've done much better.
Wait a minute. Did I get my half point for my first question?
You did. So I also gave you half a point for the Buggy Boo, Barney Boo. I thought that was close enough, so I've given you half. But no, you done really well. That was brilliant. And honestly, I'm not just saying it. You play this character like no one else I've seen before. And if you were on Facebook and you saw the fan pages that they've got on Two Doors Down, every day there's people that actually do videos of you, so that they put their voice over yours, and they reenact scenes, and it's just brilliant. You've become this kind of cult figure as Christine.
Well, it's lovely. A friend of mine in London sent me I don't read reviews. I gave that up years ago, and she sent me a review in the Guardian for the Christmas special, which was so lovely, you know, saying if Elaine doesn't win an award for this, and it was bizarre. I won a BAFTA here in Scotland, but actually, I think, and I'm not being ungracious here. I think Doon should get it, because Doon is actually doing another accent as well. She's so brilliant. But I won it anyway, and I didn't even go because I thought there's no way I'm going to get it. You know, a comedy actress never gets Best Actress or any of those sort of things. So I didn't even go to the BAFTAs. I was sitting in my pajamas watching X Factor when Grado texted me going, "You bloody won."
Wow.
So it was all very weird. And I sort of have got to that point in my career, because I'm old, of just being really pleased that it works, and that in the darkness that we're all in, that people get to smile and laugh for a wee bit. You know, we all need that at the moment.
Wow, the Christmas special was brilliant. I wish it was on Christmas Day. I said to Doon, it was just such a good episode, and I was surprised it was 3 days later, but it did incredibly well. Over 3 million people tuned in to the episode, making it one of the most watched episodes of Toodles Down.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. I didn't know that. That's fab.
So it was incredible. And Series 5 is coming. Jonathan said it's been delayed again, obviously due to the current situation, but all of us cannot wait for that. You've kept us going through lockdown, and we're looking forward to see if Christine's finally got through those packs of pasta that she bought back in March.
I'm looking forward to finding that out as well. I know the scripts are written, but I haven't seen any of them yet. We don't get them to just before. Well, thank you. I've really enjoyed this afternoon. You've cheered me up like nothing. Thank you.
Thank you.